There's a $60 procedure your dealer charges you $150 for, and it takes about 15 minutes. You can do it right now with nothing but a wrench in about 10 minutes of your time. If you own a pickup truck, this is the most important thing you don't know about your engine. I'm Wade Tucker. I've been turning wrenches on pickup trucks since 1982. In that time, I've owned, maintained, and rebuilt more trucks than most people will see in a lifetime. And I'm going to show you right now exactly what that $60 dealer trick is, and why it can add 100,000 miles to almost any engine you'll find under the hood of a pickup truck today. Before we get into it, if you found this useful so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I've been doing this for going on 6 years now, and I put out a video every single week. And drop a comment at the end. I want to know if you've tried this on your truck. Tell me what you drive and what happened. Here's the deal. Your truck has a computer. Every fuel-injected pickup built after about 1986 has one. That computer is called the ECU. That's the engine control unit. Or on newer trucks, the PCM. That's the powertrain control module. Same thing, different name depending on who built your truck. Ford calls it a PCM. GM calls it a PCM. Dodge calls it a PCM. They're all doing the same job. They're constantly adjusting your engine's air-fuel mixture, timing, idle speed, and transmission shift points based on what the sensors are telling them. Here's the problem. Over time, your ECU develops what we call adaptive fuel tables. These are basically memory files the computer builds based on how you've been driving. If you've been doing a lot of short trips, it learns that pattern. If you've been towing heavy, it learns that too. And after enough miles, those adaptive tables start working against you. The computer is trying to compensate for sensor drift, for worn components, for patterns that no longer reflect what your engine actually needs. And the result is your engine starts using more fuel than it should. It starts idling rough. The transmission shifts at the wrong times. You feel like your truck is getting tired before it actually is. That's what the dealer is resetting when they charge you $150. They're wiping those adaptive fuel tables clean. And the reason it works is because when you reset the ECU, the computer goes back to its factory calibration. It starts from scratch. It relearns based on how you're driving right now, not based on 10 years of accumulated short trips and sensor drift. The best part? All you need is a wrench and about 10 minutes. And this works on F-150s, Silverados, Rams, Tundras, Tacomas, anything with a fuel-injected engine built in the last 40 years. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Here's what you do. Number 1, with your truck fully warmed up and running, you turn off the engine. You pop the hood. You're going to find the negative battery terminal. It's the one with the minus sign on it, usually on the top or side of the battery. Most trucks have it on the driver's side, but I've seen them on the passenger side too on some Silverados. You'll recognize it because there's a cable clamped onto that terminal. That cable is your ground. Number 2, you loosen the clamp on that negative terminal, just a little, enough to twist it off the post. Most of the time you just need a wrench, sometimes a socket. I've never needed anything bigger than a 10 millimeter on any pickup. Once the clamp is loose, you pull it off the battery and set it aside. Make sure it doesn't touch anything metal while you're doing the rest of this. Number 3, you get in the truck. You turn the key to the accessory position, not all the way to start, just accessory. The dash lights come on, the radio comes on, but the engine isn't turning over. You do this because the accessory position powers up the electrical system without the battery connected, and it drains any stored capacitors in the ECU. If you don't do this step, sometimes the ECU holds enough residual charge that it doesn't fully reset. It's like rebooting your phone. You don't just pull the battery, you also hold the power button. Number 4, you hold down the brake pedal and turn on your headlights. Both of these together draw a small amount of power and help drain any remaining charge in the system. You do this for about 30 seconds to a minute. Number 5, you turn the key back to off. Then you wait. This is where people get impatient and skip ahead. You wait at least 5 minutes. Some people say 2 minutes is enough. I've been doing this long enough to tell you 5 minutes is better. 10 is better still if you're not in a hurry. You're waiting for the capacitors in the ECU to fully discharge. If you reconnect the battery too early, you can actually damage the ECU or set off error codes. Number 6, You reconnect the negative battery terminal. Tighten it down just enough so it won't come loose. Don't over-tighten. You're not trying to win a torque contest. Then you start the truck and let it idle. Do not touch the gas pedal. Do not put it in gear. Just let it idle. Now here's the important part nobody tells you. That idle you hear right now, it's not normal idle. Your truck has to relearn idle speed. And it does it automatically, but only if you let it. If you drive it immediately before the relearn cycle finishes, you're going to have a rough idle for the first few miles. Nothing's wrong with the engine. The computer just hasn't finished calibrating yet. Some trucks take 10 minutes of idle. Some take 20. I've had a few Silverados from the early 2000s take close to 30 minutes before the idle smoothed out. When should you do this? I do it on every single used truck I buy. Before I drive it anywhere, before I even leave the seller's property, I reset the ECU. Here's why. I have no idea how the previous owner treated that truck. I don't know if they did mostly short trips. I don't know if they neglected air filters or fuel filters. I don't know if they ran cheap gas or premium. All of those things get baked into those adaptive fuel tables over time. And when I buy a used truck, I want the computer running on factory calibration, not on whatever the last owner taught it. I've done this on a 1997 F-150 with the 4.6-liter modular V8. I've done it on a 2003 Silverado with the 5.3-liter Vortec. I've done it on a 2010 Ram 1500 with the 5.7-liter Hemi. I've done it on a 2015 Tundra with the 5.7, and every single time within the first tank of gas after the reset, I notice the truck runs smoother and the fuel economy improves. Not by a little. I'm talking half a mile per gallon to a full mile per gallon in most cases. On a truck that gets 15 miles per gallon, that's meaningful. Over 100,000 miles, that difference pays for a lot of oil changes. Which trucks benefit most from this? Honestly, any truck over about 80,000 miles that you bought used. But there are some specific models where I've seen the biggest difference. The 1997 to 2003 F-150s with the 4.6 two-valve modular V8. Those engines respond really well to this reset. They were known for developing a rough idle after a few years of short trip driving. I've seen those engines show noticeable improvement in idle quality after the reset. The 2001 to 2005 Silverados with the 5.3-liter Vortec, same thing. That engine is one of the most reliable engines ever put in a pickup truck. But if it's been used for a lot of city driving, the adaptive tables get loaded up and you start losing fuel economy. A simple reset clears all of that. The 2006 to 2008 Ram 1500s with the 4.7-liter and 5.7-liter Hemi, those trucks also benefit a lot. The Hemi in particular tends to develop a slight lope at idle when the adaptive tables get full. After a reset, that goes away. Now there's a few things that happen after the reset that you need to know about. And these are where people get confused and think something is broken when it's not. First is the throttle body relearn. On most modern trucks, meaning anything built after 2000, the throttle body has a motor in it that controls the throttle plate. When you disconnect the battery, the ECU forgets the idle position of that throttle plate. So when you start the truck, the computer has to relearn where to set it. This usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes of driving. During that time, you might notice the throttle feels sluggish or hyper-responsive. That's normal. Drive it gently for the first 10 minutes and let the computer catch up. Second is the transmission relearn. The transmission has its own adaptive programming separate from the engine computer. When you reset the ECU, the transmission still thinks it's in whatever mode it was in before. So for the first few miles, you might feel the transmission shifting a bit hard or holding gears too long. Again, this is normal. The transmission is relearning your driving habits. Give it about 50 to 100 miles and it will settle in. After that, most people tell me the shift quality is noticeably better than before the reset. Third is the crankshaft position sensor relearn. On some Ford trucks, particularly the 2004 to 2008 F-150s with the 5.4-liter 3-valve Triton, the crankshaft position sensor has to resync with the camshaft position sensor after a battery disconnect. This usually shows up as a rough idle for the first minute or two after starting. It sounds like a misfire. It is not a misfire. It is the computer figuring out timing again. Give it 30 seconds to a minute and it clears up. Here's what happens if you don't do this. The adaptive fuel tables keep drifting. Your sensors are aging. The computer is compensating for components that are wearing out. And all of that compensation costs you fuel economy. Over time, you can lose half a mile per gallon to a full mile per gallon. That doesn't sound like a lot until you do the math. If you drive 15,000 miles a year at 15 miles per gallon, that's 1,000 gallons of gas. At $3 a gallon, you're talking about $3,000 a year. A full mile per gallon improvement saves you about $200 a year. Over the life of the truck, that's real money. And here's the other cost nobody talks about. Dealers charge anywhere from $120 to $180 to do this reset. Some of them call it a PCM reprogramming. Some call it an adaptive table reset. Some call it a drivability recalibration. They're all talking about the same 60-second procedure I'm describing right now. The only difference is they're charging you between $120 and $180 to push 3 buttons on a scanner that cost them about $2,000. And here's what really gets me. Some of those same dealers will tell you that resetting the ECU can damage your truck. I've heard that line more times than I can count. It is not true. Resetting the ECU does not damage anything. It does not void your warranty. It does not reset your odometer. It does not touch the anti-theft system on anything built after 1995. All it does is clear the adaptive fuel tables and force the computer back to its factory calibration. If resetting the ECU damaged trucks, every truck that ever had its battery replaced would be destroyed. And they're not. Batteries get replaced on trucks all the time. Nobody calls that a PCM reset. But it's the exact same procedure. The only legitimate concern with resetting the ECU is that on some very specific late model trucks, I'm talking about 2015 and newer, mostly the diesel models, the reset might trigger a code that requires a dealer to clear. I've seen this on a 2016 F250 with the 6.7 liter Power Stroke. The computer logged the battery disconnect and set a code that wouldn't clear without a dealer level scan tool. This is rare. It happens on less than 5% of the trucks I've worked on. And even when it happens, the code is informational only. It doesn't affect performance or trigger a check engine light, but I want you to know about it so you're not surprised if it happens to you. One more thing while we're on the subject. There's another reset that many truck owners don't know about. It's the transmission control module reset. Most modern pickups have a separate computer that controls the transmission, and that computer also develops adaptive tables over time. If you've noticed your transmission shifting rough, holding gears too long, or not downshifting when it should, that transmission adaptive table might be the cause. The procedure is similar. You disconnect the negative battery cable, you wait 5 minutes for the capacitors to drain, but instead of just starting the truck normally, you put the transmission in neutral. You start the engine and let it idle in neutral for 2 minutes. Then you put it in drive and let it idle in drive for 2 minutes. Then you put it in reverse and let it idle in reverse for 2 minutes. This forces the transmission control module to relearn the clutch apply points. After that, you drive it normally for about 50 miles. This one, I'll admit, I learned from a transmission builder in Knoxville about 15 years ago, and I've used it on more than a few Silverados and Tundras where the transmission was shifting a bit off. Now let me tell you about the most common mistakes people make when doing this reset. Mistake number 1 is not waiting long enough before reconnecting the battery. I told you 5 minutes minimum. I've seen people reconnect after 30 seconds and then wonder why the truck runs rough for the first week. The computer needs that full discharge time. 30 seconds is not enough. 5 minutes is the absolute minimum. 10 is better. Mistake number 2 is turning the key to start while the battery is disconnected. I've seen this on YouTube and it makes my blood run cold. If you turn the key to start without the battery connected, you can send voltage through the alternator windings and damage the alternator. The accessory position is fine. The start position is not. Do not attempt to start the truck while the battery is disconnected. Mistake number 3 is forgetting to reset the clock and the radio presets. This is not a mechanical problem, but people get frustrated when they lose their station presets. Fair warning, you're going to have to reset everything that runs on battery power. Your clock, your radio presets, your seat memory if you have it, your automatic headlights if they have a memory setting. None of this is a problem, it's just mildly annoying. I keep a little notebook in my shop with preset station frequencies for the trucks I work on, so I don't have to look them up again. Mistake number 4 is over-tightening the battery terminal when you reconnect it. You do not need to gorilla tighten that terminal. You just need it snug enough that it won't vibrate loose. If you over-tighten it, you risk cracking the battery post or stripping the bolt. And a loose battery connection is one of the most common causes of rough idle and electrical problems in older trucks. So just snug it down and move on. Let me address something I hear all the time from newer truck owners. They say, "My truck has a push-button start. How do I turn it to accessory without the key?" On push-button trucks, you just push the start button once without pressing the brake pedal. That puts it in accessory mode. The rest of the procedure is exactly the same. Here's my rule of thumb on how often to do this. If you buy a used truck, reset it immediately. If you notice a gradual decline in fuel economy over a few years, reset it and see if it comes back. I personally reset the ECU on my own trucks every 2 years or about 30,000 miles. It takes 15 minutes and it keeps the computer running on clean calibration instead of years of accumulated compensation data. Now I want to be clear about something. This reset is not a magic fix. It will not repair a failing sensor. It will not fix a worn camshaft phaser. It will not stop a transmission that is already slipping. What it does is put your engine computer back to the condition it was in when it left the factory. And for most trucks, especially ones that have accumulated years of short trip driving and sensor drift, that is enough to notice a real improvement in how the truck runs and how it uses fuel. If your truck has a check engine light on, this reset will not fix it. Do not use this procedure to try to clear a check engine light. If you have a code stored, you need to know what that code means before you start resetting things. The reset procedure I'm describing today is for maintenance purposes only. It's preventive maintenance. It's the same as changing your oil or rotating your tires. It's not a repair procedure. And one last thing, if you have a 2004 to 2008 Ford F-150 with the 5.4-liter 3-valve Triton engine, I want to talk about that engine specifically because it's a special case. That engine had a known camshaft phaser problem. The phasers would fail and cause a rattle noise at startup and a loss of power. The adaptive fuel table reset I'm describing will not fix that problem. But what it will do is give you a clean baseline so that when a mechanic tries to diagnose the issue, the computer readings are accurate and not contaminated by years of accumulated compensation data. If you take that truck to a shop to get the phaser fixed, having the ECU reset beforehand will help the mechanic get accurate readings from the diagnostic equipment. All right, let's wrap this up. You've got a $60 procedure in your hands that costs nothing. It takes 15 minutes. It clears the adaptive fuel tables and puts your engine computer back to factory calibration. It can add mileage to your engine by restoring fuel economy. It can improve throttle response. It can smooth out the transmission shift quality. And the only thing you need is a wrench and 5 minutes of patience. If you found this useful, go ahead and hit subscribe. I've been doing this for 6 years and I plan to keep doing it as long as I'm physically able to turn a wrench. Every week I try to put out something that helps you keep your truck running without having to pay a dealer $150 for something you can do yourself in your driveway. Drop a comment below. Tell me what kind of truck you drive and whether you've ever done a battery disconnect reset. I'm genuinely curious. And if you've got questions, put them in the comments too. I read every single one and I try to answer as many as I can. Until next time, keep your trucks running.